Well, that's a relief. Moving straight on then to agenda item 5. Do we have Mark Barrett present to present?
I believe it's Katie.
Oh, sorry, you did say. Yes, it's Katie.
So I think Mark is with us, but Katie, who's been leading on a lot of this work, Chair, will be taking this item for us this evening.
Thank you very much. Please proceed.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very pleased to bring the paper on behalf of Mark Barrett, and I believe Stuart McKellar is also with you to talk about some of it later on. So we've brought to you a joint paper for both the Household Support Fund and the Energy Rebate proposals for spending. Whilst they are two very different grants, we wanted to bring them together to you to make sure that we've aligned our approach and maximise the distribution of the funding. So in terms of the Household Support Fund, first of all, this is a fund provided by the Department for Work and Pensions. It's the latest iteration of a number of funds we've had from them. Previously, it's been the Winter Grant Scheme and the COVID Local Support Grant. There's been a slight change in the conditions for this particular extension. So there's slightly more focus this time on pension age households, in addition to the previous focus on families. This is partly in light of the recovery from the pandemic and also, of course, the growing concern that we have around the cost of living facing many of our residents in the community. So we're very grateful to have this funding and really pleased to be able to distribute it all directly to the community. The proposals that we're bringing today are broadly similar to the approach that we've taken with the previous funds. And it's made up of 3 separate strands that you'll see within the papers in front of you. All of the options that we're presenting for the Household Support Fund will be to offer supermarket vouchers. These have been very well received so far, so we thought it would make sense to continue that proposal. Specifically for Route 1 and in line with our previous grants that had similar conditions, we're recommending to provide all children qualifying for free school meals in Bracknell Forest schools and the equivalent under 5s who are in education settings with a £15 voucher per child per week for each of the school holidays. And in particular, this includes the summer holidays and October holidays. The second route that we're proposing is to provide pension age households who are in receipt of pension credit or council tax reduction with a one-off supermarket voucher as well to the value of £100. And also we are aware that there may well be some additional remaining funding. So we've identified 2 cohorts that we'd really like to be able to provide some additional support to, again, in line with the grant conditions. So that will be households with disabilities and also Bracknell Forest care leavers. We believe that this will continue to provide much needed financial relief to households who are in immediate financial hardship in the community. And of course, this will sit very much alongside our wider financial hardship support. The second half of the paper is on the energy rebate side of things, and I would look to Stuart McKellar to provide a few key points from that side of the paper.
Please do, carry on.
Thank you, Chair. This report deals with the discretionary element of the energy rebate rather than the mandatory element, which is applicable to all households in bands A to D. And in terms of that element, we have paid out already over 25,000 payments to households, and this week we started making the first payments to households who don't pay by direct debit, so we're making our way through the application process. In terms of the discretionary element, we do have the ability to determine our own scheme locally, councils being encouraged to do so. The government guidance does make reference specifically to council tax support recipients in bands E to H in their notification of the grant. So therefore the first proposal is to make the funding available to those households. Secondly, it's been identified that a further priority group would be care leavers. Beyond that, in order to expedite the process of agreeing the targeting of the grant, then it's proposed that that be delegated to the Member Welfare Steering Group to look at. And we have some very clever software which will allow members to actually be given insight and information around where financial hardship is likely to be in the borough. And the formal decision would be taken by the Executive Member for Children, Young People and Learning, who chairs that group. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. I believe Councillor Barnard, you would like to
Well, yes.
move
So,
and
first, Chair, if there were any questions that anyone had for the officers before we move the recommendation.
indeed invite questions. Members have had a number of opportunities prior to this meeting to examine the item, but are there any outstanding questions? There being none, Councillor Barnard.
I'd like to move the recommendations as tabled. Is that seconded?
I'm happy to second.
Thank you very much.
You have a lot of people going up to second, but Councillor.
Thank you very much, Councillor.
Thank you.
I think both officers, both Katie and Stuart, have, I think, gone through the headlines of this. And I think the first thing I want to say is that we absolutely recognise this is very challenging for a lot of our residents at this time. And we are absolutely committed as a council to doing what we can to support. I think the recommendations that you have before us today do two things. First of all, it continues a programme that we have with the supermarket vouchers, which I think are very tried and tested and an evidenced effective way of reaching those families and those households and those older residents that we want to. But I think more widely, and secondly, the additional discretionary support on, on the energy work and things like that, including support for care leavers and others, are very, very welcome at this time. And I think in the case of all of these, these are the proposals that we have at this point in time that are worked up. As Stuart said in his presentation, we have a really, I think, appropriate and effective bit of software that enables us to identify and match across, those residents and those families which we could predict would be in most need, so we can target such further support as we can. I think to bear in mind that this is what we want to do at this point in time to give some certainty to families over the next, 3 holiday periods, because don't forget, we've also put in place the vouchers for the forthcoming half term. But I think more widely, I think it's with the Members' Welfare Group, which is a group of councillors from across party with different backgrounds and different experience in different sectors of our community, to work with officers to assess the impact of the measures we've taken and take such further measures as we can. And I welcome the recommendations the group has made historically. We'll continue to do so in terms of ultimate decisions we take on how further to use the resources we've got. In conclusion, Chair, what I'd like to say is this is one part of the package, and as ever, we urge families and households in Bracknell Forest to seek such support as they need to make sure they're maximising their access to that which they're eligible for and entitled to get at this time. And it's really, really important, because I think some aspects of the system for claiming support can be a little more complex, but there are organisations and individuals in the borough that can appropriately signpost, and we do urge residents to take advantage of that and seek support in whichever way they can. So I'm very supportive of the range of measures, and I would like to thank Katie and her team and Stuart and his team for all the work they've done to facilitate the progress we've made so far, and recognise and understand this is a really significant and serious situation we face, and we will do all we can to continue to support our residents in the weeks and months ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barnard. Does the seconder wish to speak?
Yes, thanks. Briefly, I too welcome the work that's gone into putting together this package of measures and the thought that's also gone into the contents. I think at a time which is difficult and really quite worrying for some of our residents, I think it's important to have things that can be got to them quickly without delay, so that they can have that support. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak? There being nobody speaking against it, would Councillor Barnard, do you wish to sum up?
No, just to endorse the comments that Councillor Turrell made, and to just once again thank all the officers for what I think is a very timely response to this, and recognising the challenges, particularly in terms of making the energy payments to households that aren't on direct debit, the work that this council is doing to expedite those payments as fast as possible. It is challenging. It's nationally recognised as a challenge, but I do believe, Chair, that we are in a good position relative to many other authorities, and will continue to do so. And as I'm sure our residents would want to know, that we make sure that we're doing the appropriate checks and balances to get the funds as swiftly and effectively and appropriately as possible to the people that are entitled to and in receipt of them. So, once again, to thank everyone involved in this programme. It's you know, it's very, very resource intensive, but I'm really pleased with the progress we're making. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All those in favour, please show. And that is unanimous here in the room. Thank you very much indeed. And
Yeah, thank you, colleagues.
And thanks to all the officers that have put that together. Moving on then to agenda item 6. It's the request from the taxi trade to review Hackney carriage tariffs. And I believe we have Damien. Yeah, look, he's up there raring to go. Away you go. Thank you, Mr. James.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Good evening, members. Yes, the purpose of this report is to consider a business case which is attached to Appendix A, submitted by representatives of the taxi trade to review the current table of fares in light of the current increase in the cost of fuel, which we'll all be aware of. The report also outlines the statutory consultation process that must be undertaken if the executive agrees to consult on the proposals set out in the business case. It's a relatively brief paper, but I'll take you through just a few highlights if that's okay, Chairman. So local authorities have a statutory power to set the maximum fares that licensed Hackney carriage and taxis can charge for a journey. The current tariff scale was agreed in 2021. It is reviewed on an annual basis, but we are bringing forward that review slightly because of the request from the taxi trade. The Licensing and Safety Committee considered the business case, which was put forward by the trade, and the proposed consultation process at an extraordinary meeting on the 12th of May. And they considered all of the information and having reviewed the business case, the committee were supportive of the trade's business case, given the rapid escalation in fuel prices. If the executive is minded to consult on the proposal, all comments on the business case request will be reported to the Licensing and Safety Committee for the members to note at the June meeting. And if any objections are received and not withdrawn, they will be presented back to the executive at the 19th of July meeting alongside the business case from the trade. If no objections are received or they're withdrawn before the end of the consultation, the revised table of fares will come into effect on the 16th of June 2022. I'm happy to take any questions, Chair, but that's covered the main highlights on the paper. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, you've had the invitation to ask further questions. We have seen the paper previously. Any questions? Chris.
Just a little clarification. We're being asked to approve a consultation and the so it's a 15% increase in fares and against a 25% increase in the cost of fuel. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you. That is absolutely correct. Yes, you're being asked to approve the start of a consultation period. And obviously, if there are specific comments or objections as a result of that consultation, then you'll have an opportunity to see those at the future executive meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Turrell. I was going to ask for that clarification by the mover, but that's good. So with the report is before us. I think it's Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chairman. I will move the recommendations on point 2, and it's just point 2, isn't it? Yeah. So that's 2.1 to 2.7.
I'm happy to second that.
Thank you. Just to say a few words, I think the economic situation that we have with the rise in inflation, especially in fuel costs, severely impacts everybody who uses fuel. But I think the taxi trade are more hit than most businesses because their entire business is transport. And if we were to ignore that massive increase in costs that was very unexpected, I think it would kind of crush their business, and people would just find that it wasn't worth being a taxi driver at the moment. And I think people who needed taxis would find that there weren't taxis to pick them up and take them where they needed to go. So although it's regrettable that we have to allow prices to rise, I think it's absolutely essential for the business that we do that.
Thank you for that. And in seconding that, pretty much the same comments in support of that. vital service. The costs of running a taxi definitely going up, and we do need their services. So I was happy and am happy both to second this and to approve it. Does anybody else wish to speak? There is nobody else. I'm just checking. There are no hands up on the screen. No. Therefore, all those in favour, please show. That is unanimous in the room. Thank you very much indeed. And another one, thank you, Mr. James.
Thank you, Chairman.
And we will move on. I think agenda item 7 is the exclusion of the public press. And I shall get to the appropriate wordage for that in a second. And I shall move the sorry. Right. I shall do that. There we are. That pursuant to Regulation 4 of the Local Authorities Executive Arrangements as printed on the agenda at agenda item 7. I move that. Is it seconded? It is seconded.
Second.
Darrell. We are therefore moving into private session. Could you please advise when any members of the public that may be online are no longer with us?